Welcome, fans, to a special Monday edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and tonight we're very pleased to welcome a man whose career in total nonstop action wrestling and Impact that I followed closely, the man who was a multi-time TNA World Tag Team Champion, the one, the only WildCat, Chris Harris. Chris, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Jack. Thank you for having me, man. This should be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for appearing. But before we get into the highlights of your TNA career, I like to always ask guests: growing up, were you a fan of professional wrestling? And if so, did you have a particularly favorite territory or wrestler that influenced you?
Yeah, I was definitely a fan. I started out like a lot of kids in my generation, just Saturday mornings in front of the TV. Instead of the cartoons, I was checking out Saturday morning wrestling, man, and I just became a huge fan. That was about '86, so that's when I started kind of getting hooked. And my area didn't have, yeah, I wasn't really fully aware of the territory kind of thing. So I was just watching a lot on TV. So I became a fan of the WWF, and then also I could also flip and see NWA. So that was pretty much my coming up in the as a fan, watching both of those. I really enjoyed both, but yeah, I was hooked, man. And the one that really hooked me that I just was my guy was Macho Man Randy Savage. Um, he was just I just thought he was. I mean, he was such a character that really stood out to me. And yeah, man, just really, I loved the way he wrestled. I loved his, everything about him. I just thought was just so cool. So he really stood out to me, man. Had that he was the one I watched. I wasn't much of a Hulk or a Warrior guy. I was a Savage guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate, being the same age as yourself and the same sort of exposure growing up. So, did you have a moment that the light bulb kind of went off and you said, you know what, I want to get into wrestling as a career professionally? Do you remember that, or how did that decision process work?
Um, well, I don't know if there was a light bulb for that. There was definitely a light bulb for what hooked me, hook, line, and sinker. And I know this is a very common answer with a lot of people, but it was Savage and Steamboat, Mania 3. I had started watching in '86, as I said, and was kind of watching up to that. And so that was the big event, the bigger event that I saw coming up. And when I saw that match, I was just hooked. And I guess it was probably in the back of my mind from then on. I mean, I was just so obsessed with wrestling. And uh, I did so much. I started doing it in the backyard with a group of friends. We had that kind of thing going. I just loved it. And again, I think it was just always in the back of my mind. And once I graduated high school, um, I just kind of did what everybody was doing. Just what you're encouraged to do. I went to college. I went a couple years to college, and I still did not really know what I wanted to do. I had no real major that interested me or anything, and that wrestling was always in the back of my mind, man. And I continued to do the backyard stuff. So, I just that little touch of it just really got me going. And yeah, I finally was like, okay, I've spent 2 years in college and no direction, and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I better do it now. And so I just fully dove in, man. And I know the first thing, and this is what I tell all the young guys wanting to get in, is that you got to find a credible place to train. And so I did some research for that, looked it up. I found very credible wrestling school, and it was far away from my house. It was a drive, but I was willing to do what it took, man. And so I put everything in, and got the right training, and then I was off, man. There was no looking back.
How would you describe your training process, given that you were kind of breaking in at the in the days that the territories were somewhat in decline. Was it? Would you characterize your training as old school in nature, or do you have any memories that stick out from that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would definitely would consider it old school just because of in the past whatever 20 years or so, I relate more to that older generation. I never got to work in the days of the territories. My days was when the indies were becoming a thing. So that was really my experience with it. But um, yeah, I felt like I got the old school training. We were still believing, still trying to protect the business. And um, what I like to say about my first experience training, the school I went to, they trained me very well physically. Whether it's reversals, counter holds, just you're really good with the physical parts of wrestling. What to do. But I didn't really get my inside training until later on, when I hooked up with another training center, another guy that I really respected, and that's when I started learning the psychology of the business, and not just what to do and how to do it, but when to do it. Just all the other aspects that I just never really thought of when you putting a match together. So, but I felt like I had some really good training, and that's what I stuck with, and that's what I always push today, because it just over the years it's just gotten to a point. There's so many trainers out there that have no real experience or anything. What I mean, I hate to say it like this, but it's kind of like, what have you done in the business? What you want to go to someone that has been there and done that, and can give you that kind of knowledge and experience that they went through. And there's so many out there that just they'll take your money, and you just don't get the good quality training that you really need. So, but yeah, I was very happy with the training I went through.
So you ended up getting some work with WWF in '96 on Superstars, and then segued into a developmental deal with WCW. Can you describe how that process played itself out?
Yeah, the place I started my training with, they just they had that connection um, with WWE. I can't even remember the actual connection, but um, my guys were a group of guys that they would, anytime the WWE was, I don't even want to say the area because there was a lot of traveling involved, but when they needed some enhancement guys, they would call, and the guys I trained with, that they were on very frequently on the WWE programs like Superstars, and so they had asked me about it one time, and I guess in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't want to make that, you know, as far as I go. I just didn't want to have the name of doing that. And I confided in a couple people about it, and I thought, what, it's a great experience, and I was encouraged to do it. So yeah, I went with them I just did it one trip, and I had two matches. Ironically, it was with Farouk and Bradshaw separately when they were doing their singles. And but yeah, it was just such a great experience. I got in there, and I was only, let's see, I started my training in '94, debuted in '95, and this was '96. So I wasn't, very long in the business. But yeah, it was just a great experience to be able to work with those guys, and to, see how the big company worked, and at least, as much as I could for the placement that I was. Um, but yeah, I just continued on the indies, and did my thing, and just trying to get as much experience as I could. That led me. I'm from Kentucky. That led me to Nashville, which Nashville has always been a great wrestling town. And I started working frequently down there for Burt Prentice. He was the promoter down there, and started working for him a lot. Well, he had the connections with a number of people, but Terry Taylor was in charge of talent relations at the time for WCW, and this was the year the end of '99, 2000. Um, And so we kind of know where WCW was headed at that point. But they were looking for, to bring some guys in and, still trying to do what they could to survive. And so, yeah, through that connection, they contacted Bert, and through Terry Taylor, a group of us would come in, and majority of the work was security. We do security on Nitro and Thunder, but then the other shows we were actually getting some work. So we were getting some matches. We did a lot of the WCW Saturday night matches, and then on Sunday was their WCW Worldwide. So I was getting a lot of work with that, and I got to work with some amazing guys to get in the ring with. And so I look back on that as just such a great experience to be able to work with those guys and be able to do it with WCW, because they were looking to push new talent. So I got to know a lot of people that were involved in that process. Jimmy Hart was heavily involved in that, and then Mike Tenay, Scott Hudson were the commentators, and so they played a part in that. And I obviously got their attention because I carried on a relationship with Tenay onto TNA, but also Scott Hudson. He was there with us for a while, but yeah, just a great experience. And I was very lucky to have that, the WWF experience earlier in my career. But now I had about 5 years under my belt. And so I was really looking to do something. And so I worked most of 2000 like that. And then in October is when they offered me a contract. And it wasn't even a developmental. I mean, it was a regular contract. And that was offered to me. And so, of course, I jumped on that and signed with WCW in October. And it's just such a huge accomplishment. At least that time, it was just the big two. That's where you needed to go to do something to make some money. And to be able to sign with WCW was just a huge accomplishment for me. And I was so excited. And who would have thought 6 months later, one of the big two companies goes out of business, or gets sold, just something you never think of. And so, yeah, man, that was a crushing blow. I had really high hopes, and but then it's, then just makes you fight harder. You got to go right back to it and push your way back to the top.
Yeah, a fan on Twitter wanted me to ask you about your appearance in WCW at Halloween Havoc as the fake Sting.
Yeah, man, that was probably other than my matches with some of the guys, that was one of my favorite moments of my WCW run. I'm not even sure how it got started. Just I guess in the writers' room, they some of them knew me, and with my hair down, I did kind of have the resemblance to Sting, back in the like the 97, 98 run. I guess they call it the Crow Sting. And there was just a lot of similarities. And so there was, now there were some times where Sting wouldn't have even been there, and I did some appearances like that. But there were some where he was there, and I would just be just another fake Sting. But I did that on several occasions. I did. There were times where they had me in a coffin. I remember I busted out and started beating up Vampiro with the belt, or with the bat, and they kind of worked that to where that was all under strobe. They had the big strobe light going on, and so you couldn't really get a good glance of me for something like that. And that was right out in the aisleway in front of the people. There were other times where they got shots of me in the rafters, where they would just get a shot on camera, but it would be a distance shot, so you would not be able to look close enough to see. And then, of course, the biggest one was Halloween Havoc. Such an amazing spot for me. They had the other fake Stings kind of interfere, but then I was actually the one that, busted through the ring and went at it with Sting. And yeah, it was just a really cool spot. I actually got to get physical with Sting, and I whacked him with Jeff Jarrett's guitar. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was really cool. I'm so glad I had a chance to do that. And and even working with Sting, he was the one that actually painted my face. So it was interesting, because as we're doing it, he's looking straight at me, and he said, "Man, this is so weird. It's like looking in a mirror." So even I had Sting's blessing for doing something like that. But yeah, very cool, man. It was really cool.
Absolutely. And then fast forward to 2002, and you had I guess a tryout in TNA, ironically against Mr. Storm. Then you got signed to a contract, and then seemed to team up with James pretty quickly after that. How did that series, that historic series of events, come about?
So I'd been working in Nashville, as I said, and Storm was a real big deal down there in that area. He was the hometown kid, one of the biggest baby faces they had. And even though I'd come from a different area, I was really pushed hard, and I was a top baby face for Burt Prentice. Both of us worked for Burt, and yeah, with all the talk of TNA, and they were getting things together, and both Storm and I knew Jeff. I'd met Jeff in WCW, but he was, yeah, they were kind of, that was the night. It was a Burt Prentice show, but it was kind of a tryout for everybody. I mean, they were kind of setting up the broadcast team that night, and some interviews and different things like that. So it was kind of a little dry run for them, but they were also looking to scout talent. And I don't remember the card, and I'm not sure who else they were really looking at, but I'm not even sure if they were completely looking at us, but our match was just happened to be the one that a lot of them were looking at, and everybody's eyes was on that match. It was Burt promoted it as a big deal, especially in that area. The two top baby faces going at it, and Storm and I we knew exactly what the opportunities were ahead of us. With this new upstart company, we wanted to be a part of it, and we went out there and we just went at it, man. And we knew, we were going to put everything we had into this match and just make it the best we possibly could. And I mean, to this day, it's one of my favorite matches to go back and look at. But yeah, we got some attention of the guys, and especially Jeff was the one I was really looking at. And I remember coming back from that, and from that match, and I looked at Jeff, and he looked at me. He just gave me a wink, and he said, "We'll be in touch." And that was awesome, man. And within days, Bob Ryder had contacted Storm and I, offering the contract. I'm pretty sure it was just for the first night, but offered us a contract for that. And for the first show, we did that, and continued to be signed for the rest of the shows. And this actually happened fast. Both of us were on the first event in Huntsville, Alabama. Storm was in a tag match. I was actually in the gauntlet for the gold match. But we actually, after the live broadcast, we taped the second that same night. And even just the second broadcast, I think it was, this is the story that I tell. I think they wanted us to be part of the company. They wanted to create new stars. And I think we felt under that category of, wanting to do something with us. But just think of, with the new company, there's just so much going on. You have to bring in your stars, and, you have to run your angles, and, just a lot of different moving parts that you have to really get together and have it all work. So they, especially Jeff, I mean, he had so much on his plate. But I felt like they knew they wanted us. They just did not know what to do with us. And I think it was a spur of the moment thing. It was like, put them together. Let's see what happens. And that's kind of how Storm and I looked at it. We both, I'm sure, in our view, we had a big singles success. But we're taught in the business, when they give you an opportunity, you run with it. Him and I had looked at each other, and we were like, you know what? If this is what they're giving us, let's. If they want a tag team out of us, then we're going to go out there and we're going to be the best damn tag team there is.
Oh, absolutely. What was your impression of how the name America's Most Wanted came about? With I understand that was James who came up with that.
Yeah, he came up with that, and we had a little background on how that came to be. But yeah, when he came up, because we had obviously been looking for a name, And when he came out with that, America's Most Wanted, I mean, it just jumped at me. I mean, it was almost like there was no thinking about it. That just sounded so great. And I loved what I liked about it because I automatically start trying to get in my creative mind where I'm like, what can we do with that? And there's so many things you can do with a name like that. Just different ways to be, creative with running angles or, your stories or anything like that. Yeah, I just loved it all around. And it's funny because we really had to push to get that going. They
Name?
TNA. I'm sorry.
The name you had to push?
Yeah, because
Wow.
TNA was kind of against it. I think they were worried about just the copyright from the TV show
Oh.
America's Most Wanted. So I mean, it was legit. They had a good reason, but we just loved it so much that we just tried to push and push just a little bit each time, see what we could get out there. And I think the first thing we did was we had AMW on the back of our trunks, um, which we wound up having for years. But we just started that, just putting AMW, kind of throwing it out there to where people, that they heard of the name and it hadn't been officially announced, but some of them knew what it was, and so we just kept wearing that and didn't get any pushback from it. And then Tanae and Don West, they were big fans of us. They loved our tag team, and so I think little by little, Tanae and Don West, they would kind of throw that into the commentary once in a while, just where they would throw it out of America's Most Wanted. And, again, no real pushback. We got that through. Jeremy Borash was doing our ring announcing at the time. And we were really good friends with Jeremy Borash. And then just one day, I guess he decided to throw, he was going to help us out also. And he wound up announcing us America's Most Wanted. And it just kind of developed from there. So, everybody was helping us in those small ways, and then it just kind of became a thing. And we never had any fallout from whether it's a lawsuit or anything from the copyright. So it worked out great, man. I loved the name. It was perfect for us, and everybody was on board.
Yeah, definitely lightning in a bottle. In 2002, you won your first world tag team championship against Ron Harris and Brian Lee. Was that a bit of a surprise given the fact that you were a relatively new unit, or was that just indicative of the organization having such faith in you guys?
It was a little bit a surprise to us. I'm not sure how much planning they put into that, but I think it's definitely what you said. I think they just had the faith and they trusted us to be put in that spot, and we knew that I mean we were both old school guys, so we knew that for them to run with that we knew how they felt about us, and that they felt that we could handle a situation like that. So that was a big that's something big to take on. But yeah, they were. I mean, we even in conversations with Dixie Carter. I mean, there were conversations where, they really wanted to run with us as one of the faces of the group as far as the upcoming stars. They obviously AJ Styles was top of their list, but I think with the success that we were having, getting over with the fans, and we were having really great matches. I mean, we put everything into our matches to make everyone really good. It was just catching on, and the name was cool, and everything was really working. So I think they had said, let's build it around let's make our tag team division around these guys, and putting the titles on us it's a huge deal to us because as I said before, I mean, I grew up on the NWA, so I knew the history of these titles, and the fact that we were holding the same titles that the Road Warriors and the Rock and Roll Express and the Horsemen. I mean, teams like that, and we're no matter what. Once that bell rang, we were in the history books as being holders of those titles. So we knew the responsibility. We took it on, and we ran with it.
And definitely as a fan watching at the time, my impression was that you guys were in certainly, although a young team, and as your legacy grew, certainly in line with the rest of those names, and had the effect of really elevating the company in terms of creating a buzz and work rate. Looking back on those Asylum years, which I think at the time a lot of folks didn't realize how good that product was, and were questioning the model of the the weekly pay-per-view. But
Yeah.
I think as time has gone on, and you know fans have an opportunity to look back and see, wow, really, this was some excellent professional wrestling product. Do you think that is an experience that you've had too, where that work, especially in those Asylum years, is more and more appreciated and gets the credit that it deserves?
Um, I think when people give it a chance, if they go back to the early days, because a lot of times I think when people think of TNA, they want to they'll go to like the Universal Studios, and once we had some really big names in there, and the crowds were bigger. But yeah, if you go back to the Asylum, I mean, there was some really great matches, and we had some real upcoming stars as part of that. And it was obviously in the beginning stages, so everything kinks were being worked out everywhere. But that was the start. I mean, this was a brand new company, and that was our start. And it was on a very limited budget, so we were doing everything we could to just keep going and make it work. And I wasn't in the behind the scenes um, operation, but I knew that what I could do. So Storm and I would go out there. We were in control of having a good match, and if we could go out there as the tag team champions and give the fans something that they wanted to see and they wanted to come back to see, if we were out there doing our part, then that's the piece that we can contribute to this. And then guys like AJ and Jeff, when he would go out there, with the star power. I mean, if everybody does their little part, that's what's going to keep this thing going and make it a success. And that's what we did. So I think a lot of those matches, those days are kind of forgotten. But yeah, if people give it the chance, if they go back, and I have heard different stories where people have gone back and they've told me, they said, man, I started from episode 1 and I started watching my way through, and they really get invested in the storylines, and they get excited about it because there were some really cool things going on then. So yeah, I think if everybody gives the opportunity, they can really get into it. But yeah, sometimes I do think it gets forgotten.
In 2004, you started to receive a push as a singles, and I remember you mentioned your friends on commentary were definitely putting you over strong as a significant threat to the King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett's world title at that time. How did you feel about getting that sort of a singles run after being originally having a singles vision for yourself, but then getting this amazing classic tag team pairing?
Man, I was really excited about it. So the way it went down, Storm had a legit injury. His shoulder was down, and of course, there's so many directions you could go with that. I mean, as far as maybe one being splitting us up or anything like that. But I'm very happy that they decided to keep us together, and Storm was always there as a supporter or a corner man or anything like that. But they decided to have me part of the the main attraction, the heavyweight title, and I was in there with some key players. So I loved it. It gave me my confidence back as far as a singles guy, like, because I'd gotten so used to the tag team, and there is a big difference. So it gave me the confidence that hey, I still can go and I can hang with these guys. But yeah, I just it was such a cool moment, and a lot of the matches I was having. I mean, obviously with AJ, I've been talking about him. AJ, Raven was in the mix. Ron Killings, R Truth. Um, who else was in there? Jeff, obviously. I mean, Jeff was the big one because he was the champion, and so obviously Jeff saw something in me, and we worked it up to where we had the championship match. And I think we made believers out of those people. I think they really believe that even though this guy's a part of a tag team, he could dethrone Jeff Jarrett and take this title. I mean, we really had people emotionally invested in that storyline, and we did everything we could to make that work. And yeah, it's still one of my most, even though I took it as a loss, it was still one of my most proud moments in TNA.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to where you left, or sorry, where the company left the fairgrounds and went to Universal Studios in Orlando. You formed a really interesting unit with Jeff Jarrett and Gail Kim. I had the pleasure of being at a number of those tapings and can distinctly recall just how over AMW was, and that group as a whole. Like the you had the crowd in the palm of your hands. So how did that stable idea come about?
Well, that whole all had to do with our heel turn. Again, I'm sure the talk was of whether or not to split up or not, and uh, Storm and I was always really pushing to stay together. We felt like we had something just magic, and the longer we were going, the more years we were putting into that team. It just there's just so much that we were doing, and that was just something to freshen it up a little bit. Like you said, the crowd was so with us and they loved us so much, and we did have them. They were into our matches, taking them for that roller coaster, and they were with us the entire time. So for us to turn our back on them, man, it was pretty harsh. I think they took it like that because, man, did they hate us. And then you can't do any worse to align yourself with a scumbag like Jeff Jarrett. I mean, he had more all the heat in the room. But yeah, I get asked about Gail a lot. That she was like that final piece that was missing. It was us being with Jeff, and we kind of called ourselves the cornerstones of the promotion. That name didn't really stick, but we were kind of looking at, hey, we were the basis from day one, and then Gail had just been signed, and to be put with us, I never had thought about having a manager, especially maybe a female valet. But man, she just added so much to the team. She just did wonders for us. The girl, I mean, she knows her shit. I don't know if I could say that, but
Curse away.
she knows her shit, man. And I know her heart was into getting a women's division going, and she really wanted to wrestle. But she knew her part at the time. That we really hadn't built the women's division yet, so she was there for whatever she needed to, man. And we definitely included her in our match because we never had anybody before. So for her to be able to be out there and add so much of a dimension to the match, I mean, a whole nother layer to it. And she was there for everything, man. I mean, she, the place hated her so much because, and not only they just hate us all as a group, but she was just so damn good. And so anything she would do to help us out, it was like she was so good at it. And it made the team better, and we would get away with it. And, we would, be winning our matches, and it just pissed everybody off even more. So I love that the group feel of it. Jeff, add something to our matches if need be. We were always there for him and his title matches. Gail was with all three of us. So it was great. It was a really great thing. And I think it freshened America's Most Wanted up a little bit to have that good heel run. And, it just wasn't overnight, man. I mean, we went a while like that, and the people really hated us.
Oh, absolutely. I can attest to that. There was some garbage being thrown. One question I wondered around this time, and this was a really exciting period in terms of the company with the television product doing stellar ratings in when you look at the ratings of professional wrestling today and compare it to what TNA was drawing at that time. It's incredible. It's mind-boggling when you got over 1 million consistently. So exciting time in the company. Great television deal with Spike. the whole Bellator, the guys block or whatever it was called, if memory serves me correct. So a lot of positive things happening for you, the group, the company. Was there ever any thought at this point in time to jump, you and Storm to jump as a team over to WWE, or was that something that just wasn't in the cards at that point in time?
Yeah, we went through a few contract signings, and I'm sure it was a thought at different points of time. For whatever reason, we just didn't. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of it was just loyalty. We just, we just loved what TNA had become and loved being a part of it. So our heart was with TNA. But we had been told that there was interest in us. I don't know how much. I never pursued it or anything, but I'll tell you, one of the things that was on my mind was that I did think of this because I thought, if we were to make that kind of a switch, I could see WWE running with us for not even a year. I mean, just a matter of months, and then they would probably split us up, and we would wind up in some just a mid card feud or something, and then in that company, it's just then what? What's after that? We'd probably just get lost in the shuffle there somewhere. So I, I don't know how much I thought of that, but I'm sure that was on my mind, and I'm sure Storm and I talked about that. That it's just if we were to go there, yeah, you may make you're going to make the money, but we were very proud of what we had built with that name and with the team and with the company. We were aligned with TNA. I mean, that's just how it was, and I just felt like our best option was to stay with TNA, and let's just keep going and see what we can make out of that, and see how far we can take the team. And we also knew, if there was a split down the line, most probably there would be. If there was a split, we just felt like TNA would do it right, and we would do it enough to where the people would really be into this thing, and they'd pick their favorite, and they would just be emotionally invested into something like that. And I just don't feel like we would have got that anywhere else. So yeah, maybe a thought, but we would quickly know that our best decision was to be with TNA.
Yeah, certainly as a tag team, one of the reasons why I as a fan and many others had such affection for that period of TNA was they seem to be the last bastion of what persons of our generation really loved, and that's tag team wrestling. And even back then in the Fed, it was like tag team wrestling became an afterthought. Meanwhile, you had yourselves, the Dudleys, LAX, on and on and on in TNA. So I can understand why you would, if you wanted to remain a team, why that would have been a sound decision.
Yeah, and that's I had thought that all the way back to from '02 when it first started. The way I have always explained it is, if you go back and start looking at tag teams in the WWE back then, I just think tag team wrestling just wasn't a priority for them over there. And most of what they were doing, and of course there's always exceptions, but most of what they were doing was they would take two singles guys, they'd throw them together, and maybe give them a little push for a matter of weeks or months. And then a lot of times they'd have a run with the titles. They'd lose the titles, then they'd split and they would feud. And it just would that's really all it was. And they never really put anything behind the tag teams. And like you said, it was a lot of it was forgotten. And that's something that TNA really took into. And of course we were, from the beginning, we were a part of that. And they would really push their tag teams, and we would have a really good tag team division. So yeah, I'm really proud of that, because that's kind of what helped us get over too, I think, is that we brought back to where people could open their eyes and see, oh, this is what a tag team match is like, because we were old school. So we were bringing back the not just the, maneuvers, but just how to work a tag team match and what is really going to get people involved in it. And we everything that we had watched and what we were taught from those early days of NWA with their tag teams, and I'll even say the WWF as well. I mean, Heart Foundation, Bulldogs, all Demolition, all those teams back then. I mean, they had a solid tag team division at one time. So we just started implementing all of those things in our matches, and I think that's really what got people's attention. It was like, wow, this is some exciting stuff. I mean, I'll still say to this day, I mean, a tag team match can be so much more exciting than a singles match. I mean, you have twice the amount of guys. Twice the amount of action. I mean, if done right, I mean, a tag team match can be a main event anywhere. So yeah, I think that really helped with us because it really helped us, the tag team division and TNA even, because WWF it wasn't a priority over there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and is solely missed. In 2006, you fast forwarded, you had that split with James, and a particularly extremely bloody match. I believe it was at Sacrifice in 2007. Can you talk about what the thought process was to eventually have the split and your memories of that bloodbath? I actually talked to James about it on May 6th at the card, and he had the same sort of fond recollections of it, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the day would come that the split was going to happen. It's always debatable on when that would be, but when it was that's when it was chosen, and you want to give the fans what they want, and what the fans wanted. Again, when we talk about getting them emotionally involved, I mean, for him to hit me in the eye with a beer bottle, months of my vision being impaired, and just the whole story in that, and Storm just being the asshole that he can be, that he really is. He just took that as and really got people's attention, man, and they hated him, and they just really they had the sympathy for me, and they were behind me, and what other way better than give us free reign in something like a Texas death match. And so we went out, and it was a bond between the two of them. We knew that we were going to go out there and we were going to beat the shit out of each other. I mean, that's just how it had to be, and we were both very cool with that. So we went out there, and a lot of people, they may not realize, but there's even when you have a whether you want to call it a hardcore match or just weapons or anything like that, there's a psychology that goes into that too. And that's what was important to us. We just didn't want to go out there and just start bashing each other with a bunch of weapons. We wanted meaning to be behind it. So I think that has a lot to do with why that match is just still remembered to this day, because we took you on a ride. We didn't just go out there and for no reason hit each other with chairs or anything like that. I mean, there was a reason for everything in that match, and we took you for a ride, and people went with us, and they were really into the whole thing. Probably one of my favorite matches, top 3, top 5, something in my book. Storm and I always had good chemistry. We obviously had good chemistry as partners, but even before that, I mean, we had been opponents for a long time, and we had just had great chemistry that way as well. So, and then you always have to look at the factor. You're always a little stiffer with your best friends because you can get away with it. And if it's somebody you don't know very well, you want to be professional and and be careful. But when you're out there with a friend, it's like okay, this is gonna hurt. You just know you're gonna give it. And him and I had that attitude. We went out there, we were gonna give it to each other, and we gave the fans exactly what they wanted. And they wanted a bloodbath, and they wanted us to beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, it certainly worked because of that storytelling and that emotional connection that you fostered with the audience, which is largely missing in this day and age again. A fan on social media wanted me to ask you about a gimmick match that you were involved in. I believe it was in Bound Bound for Glory called the Reverse Battle Royal, and it's been a subject of a lot of what's the word, criticism and derision about who even came up with it, and some debates there. What was your experience like in that unique match?
Yeah, that's probably one that you look back on and just, that was one of the things that didn't work. I think they did it more than once, but TNA was known for that. I mean, they were known for being creative and coming up with some new ideas, and a lot of them were great. But then there was obviously some that weren't. The King of the Mountain, that gets a lot of criticism as well. But I actually think that worked good. I mean, it's not as confusing as people think it is, and if you can do it. And the Ultimate X match for the X division, I thought that was a great idea, and they still do that as well. So yeah, Reverse Battle Royal. Yeah, it's just the concept is hard to get, as far as the first ones that are in the ring, and then you start fighting on the outside. So it had a lot going against it. The particular one I think you're talking about. So, Storm, I think you have your match maybe with the first 10 or something that make it to the ring. And I could be getting these rules mixed up, but I think it was like the first 10 that got into the ring. Then it becomes another battle royal to get outside, to throw your opponent outside. So Storm was going to be one of those 10. I was not. So my thinking was, look, if I'm not even part of the 10, then I'm going to do whatever I can to make my part as exciting as I can. I mean, I instead of just being another body in there that just is there to participate, that's not me. I don't want to do that. I want to try to get some attention and make people remember. So I believe Storm and I did something where I made sure we were the last. He was going to be the last one to go in. So there was already 9 people in. The very next one that entered the ring was going to be part of the match. And so I made sure that it came down to the very last man, and commentators were putting it over like the very next person that gets in there. And so Storm and I were battling, and I think we kind of did a little springboard into the ring. Both of us did. And it was like a boom, boom, Storm touched first and then me. So even in just a little part like that, and even something just that small, I still wanted to try to get the people to where they were looking at, okay, the next person in, and oh my God, Storm and Harris are coming in at the same time. Who's going to hit first? Maybe like the old version of the cage match, when who's going to hit when you have to escape the cage, who's going to hit the floor first. So that's just me trying to make something out of anything that, with the very little that we had. So yeah, and so Storm hits before I do, and then I'm kicked out, and then they continue with the match. So I made the best out of it, but yeah, it's a really hard concept to kind of get around, and I'm not sure a lot of people were too heavy on that. So I'm pretty sure they don't do that at all anymore. So
No, can you answer the debate between Irish Pat Kenny and Glenn Gilbernetti Disco as to who came up with the concept? Because each points the finger at the other.
Oh, really? No, I wish I could. I do not know. But knowing those two, let's see. Since it turned out to not be so great, I'm going to give it to Glenn. I'm going to think that he probably came up with something crazy like that. And yeah, I don't see Pat, but he claims he was. Pat claims that he was.
Disco claims Pat. Pat claims Disco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna think it was. I'm gonna think it was Disco. It's hard for me to believe that Pat would come up with something like that.
Yes, an interesting historical footnote. Anyway, moving on, you had an accomplished singles career at this time, facing such quality opponents as Kurt Angle, Booker T, Christian Cage, et cetera, and then seem to be positioning for that run with the world title finally. What happened there to not have that happen, or was that ever in the cards at that time?
Um, no, I don't think it was in the cards. I think I had more of a chance of winning that back in '04 with Jeff, when it was Jeff and I. I think there was some serious discussions about it. No, this was more of the Kurt Angle era. So I think they were really looking to go with Kurt to carry the company, and rightfully so. I was not in any kind of a category with Kurt Angle. But it did work. I mean, I loved, once again, like I said about the first run. I mean, I was just so excited to be into this, and I wanted to make the most out of it because Storm and I split. We feud. That went on for several months, but then afterwards is the real key. We had to prove, at least against each other, that we could hang in singles. But then after that, you have to take that wave and just keep riding it. Otherwise, you're going to fade out. So Storm did his part, as far as the direction he went. And with me, it was I got put in the King of the Mountain match. And, as you mentioned, I mean, just in that match, Kurt Angle, Christian, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. I mean, that's some top names that I was being part of. And so I wanted to hold my weight. And so, yeah, I love that match. I think that was a really great match. And it kind of took Christian and I in a different direction, but that's when they first put the title on Kurt. Kurt Angle won that and carried the company, and he did a great job, and we were thrilled to have Kurt Angle as part of TNA. But still, I mean, even coming out of that, I was put in the main event, and with those guys, as I was saying before, that just meant that the company trusted me enough to put me in that kind of a spot, and that catapulted Christian and I to do a few things. So, I didn't come out the winner in that match, but to be sent into a program with Christian Cage, I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
Absolutely. And then did your contract expire? Did you seek to renew it with all that history, or what happened around 08 there, 2007?
Yeah, so my contract was coming up, and once the whole Christian thing was done, I went into a kind of a half-ass program with Dustin, which being with Dustin is awesome. There was actually history with AMW and Dustin and Dusty, but it just felt like from then on I was kind of going down the card, and this was when I was it was like, look, I'm a fresh face in the heavyweight title contention. I'm a fresh face for a lot of these heels to work with. So let's jump on this. Let's really take and make something out of this. And I do have to say, I mean, a lot of what factored in was that's when we were starting to, and I don't put Kurt in this category, and I really don't put Christian either, because I feel like they really had TNA. I mean, they were there to really help TNA and to help further their career. So I feel like they really had their best intentions with TNA. But we started bringing in a lot of other ex-WWE guys, and it was kind of like one right after another was coming in, and I just felt like a lot of our guys were kind of being slowly shut down, and instead of hey, what do we have at that point? Six years built in, and 6 years of building all these stars, and now it's time to let them shine. And I feel like Storm and I was one of them. I'd throw in Bobby Roode there, Eric Young. I mean, just guys that it was time for them to have their moment, and instead we're being pushed down with a lot of what was going on in there. And I mean, I had to look at it like that. I even tried to talk to him a few times, like, what's going on? What direction can we go? And I was just, there was nothing. There was nothing on the table. And I felt like I was close enough with Vince Russo that I could ask him about it, and I just wasn't getting any answers. And it was hard to talk to Jeff about it. I just didn't see a lot of direction, and my contract was up. The renewal that they, their offer that they made me to re-sign, I mean, it was a pay cut. When I'm thinking, if anything, it should be, we should be going in the up direction. I don't know. I guess I felt like I wanted, I certainly at my heart, and I even explained this earlier when we were talking about contract negotiations, with Storm and I. My heart was with TNA. I did not want to leave TNA, but I also have to be smart about it and start thinking, what's the best for me. And I guess what I really wanted, I mean, I was making it an emotional decision. I wanted TNA to want me, and I just didn't feel like I was getting that want. Like they were kind of acting like, if you stay, great. We'll re-sign you, but it's going to be at this amount. So if you go, no big deal. We'll see you. But they really didn't think that was possible. I didn't. I truly believe they did not think I was going to go anywhere because of just from the feedback I got of the shock from when I did. And I got that from credible sources that they were just shocked that I even did. But yeah, that's just kind of what it boiled down to. I just didn't feel like TNA cared much about whether or not I signed or not. When I tried to get some info as far as what we were doing or what direction, I was getting nothing. So I just felt like I was going to get pushed further down the card for the all the ex WWE guys that were coming in, and yeah, and then the bottom line, we always try to. It always just seems to come back to money too, and and a lot of guys would kick my ass for saying this, but it wasn't all about the money. I mean, I really loved this company and I loved wrestling. So of course, I wanted to make a living at it, but that wasn't always the top thing. But when they came back and offered me a pay cut, I was like, well, that's pretty obvious where you see me. And so, yeah, I was just, it was like, okay, yeah, I got this other avenue to travel. And of course, I tested that first. I wanted to see if there was any interest, not as AMW, but as myself. I was told that there was a lot of interest. So I thought, well, I mean, that's what I'm told. Let's give this a try and let's see what we can do out of this. So it was a very difficult decision and a very scary one. But yeah, that's what I decided. I mean, we all know how it turned out, but that's what I decided at the time. I thought I got to give this a shot. I mean, it's I'm not getting any younger. I knew that my best years were right then. I mean, I was going through my best years then. So yeah, I mean, I made the difficult decision to do that, and I put everything I had into that decision and to go forward.
We'll get to that in just a second. You're signing with WWE, but do you think this indifferent attitude was related to the administration in terms of Dixie Carter and her infatuation with the ex WWE guys and not so much the homegrown talent, or is that just a misconception online?
There may be some truth to that. I really can't speak because I wasn't in those conversations, but those that were have come out and said, and it did seem like Dixie was, kind of, into the whole, in the fog of, oh my gosh, if we can get this guy and that guy, and if we can have them part of our company, we're able to say that we got these guys, and don't get me wrong, have things come in that certainly can help the company. I mean, especially back then. I mean, if you look at it, the names that came through TNA, I mean, a lot of people want to look at TNA and just think, roll their eyes nowadays. But man, for that many people to be coming through, there was obviously something happening at TNA. It was the place to be. But yeah, I think she got a little mesmerized by that and maybe lost focus. I really can't speak on the control factor of the power play that was going on. I know it was coming to be something, but in 08, I'm not sure how much of it was really going on. I'd like to think that Jeff would have been more for the homegrown stars, but did he pull for me? I don't know. I really don't know what it was, but I just know I really evaluated at the time, and that seemed to be where everybody was focused on, was all these other guys coming in, and and I did experience that part. I mean, there was guys coming in, and supposedly I'm one of the top guys, but I'm out there losing all these guys that just got there every night, and I don't want to be one of those that complains about a job, but I mean, let's to see the direction though, it was kind of obvious. So yeah, that's why I was looking elsewhere.
Well, I think history has borne out what that thought process led to, given the situation today with that company. But moving on to WWE, you signed in 2008. They came up with this new persona for you, this Braden Walker persona, which Jake Walker, my associate, wanted to ask you. What happened in terms of?
Jake
I've always
Walker, he must have been a long lost cousin of Braden.
Maybe. I never asked him that, but I should. What was the thought process again behind taking, an individual who was a star, a main event talent in WildCat, Chris Harris, and coming into the WWE with this other situation? And I know that happens to a lot of talent, but it seemed to me when I saw you debuted, it was a real head scratcher all the way around. What happened there? You said they had you were led to believe that they had some high hopes for you, and then it played out the way that it did.
Yeah, that's what I was led to believe, and I'd say they had me excited for the first maybe a number of weeks, but yeah, it quickly fell. And there was just now I do have to say, like I did not go in expecting Wildcat Chris Harris to become a huge star there. I went into it just no preconceived ideas or anything. I pretty much had accepted that Wildcat was not going to be part of the equation here. It's just not like them. For them to have had that happen, that would have been great. But I figured that Wildcat Chris Harris was not going to be part of the roster. So going in, I figured there'd be a name change. I figured that I was waiting for any kind of a change. If it was a gimmick change, something like that. I went into it open-minded. So I was ready for anything. So yeah, to be able to look back and when, I can complain about certain things, and when people, are backing me up on my side, and when they say, oh, it was a horrible name and it was a horrible this and that. Let's take the name, for example. It was a Wildcat Chris Harris. No, but I had so much faith in myself, and I was so confident that the name didn't matter to me. You call me whatever you want. I'm going to break through. I just felt like that I had the talent, that I could, show myself that I could make it with this company, and that I could fight through all that, and the name wasn't going to be an issue. And that could go along with all kinds of other things, the look or the music or the background, anything like that. But when you have that happen to all of those different things, then it's like, you're fighting an uphill battle. I was generic from start to finish, from everything. Whether it's the name, the look, the music was awful. But again, the music's not going to make or break. It's just the whole package is what was happening. And I met with the writers as far as, direction and what we could do. And there were so many ideas thrown out. I remember leaving that meeting feeling so excited. And maybe that's their job. They have that power to really get you excited about something, just to jerk it out from underneath you. And I remember being excited, and it was like the very following week at TV, it was like nothing was ever talked about. So yeah, for years I've said that. It's just amazing, $1 billion company, and they had no thought going into anything with this, and that was disappointing. It was I was just ready, and I was ready for anything, man. I was ready for the road. I was ready for all that. I wasn't married at the time. You guys could have sent me out on the road. I wouldn't have complained. And I would have done as many appearances as they wanted me to. I could have done so much, but there was just no thought put into it whatsoever. Just nothing. And I would even give suggestions, and it was falling on deaf ears. And I don't know. I just looked at it like, man, to be able to sign, and I'm not trying to put myself over here, but I would think if you're going to sign me to a contract to your company, that maybe you should know who I am. I mean, maybe you should know that, hey, maybe my history or something. And I certainly didn't go in bragging about TNA. I knew from the start that would be a no-no. So TNA never came out of my mouth. I was there, and I knew I was going to start from the bottom, and I was willing to work my way up, and that's what I was trying to do. But even then, it's just just nothing. I mean, I wish I could give you more, but I just feel like there was just no thought put into this at all, and it was just kind of doomed to fail from the beginning. But I've learned at this point of my life, my career, I will take responsibility for anything that I played a part of. Should I have spoken up more? Maybe. Should I have, just, I don't know, just different things I could have maybe done. I mean, maybe I could sit here and say I wish I would have done those things, but I was just miserable, man. I mean, it was such an awful time, and I hated being there. And for me to, as much as I loved wrestling, as much as my passion was for wrestling, for me to work for the biggest company in the world, the one that we all strive to get to, for me to work for them and to say that I hate being there. I mean, that's when I really learned how serious anxiety can be. It's not just being nervous. I mean, it's something that takes over your life. I had some serious issues with that, where I had some anxiety problems just going to work that day, and it was taken over to where I just hated being there so much, and I didn't want to be a part of it, and I wanted out. I mean, which is really sad to say, and it did some damage on me for years to come. But yeah, it's just the way it's the way it was, man. And I just look at it like, hey, it wasn't meant to be for whatever reason, and I definitely think something could have been done. I think if it maybe more communication or something. I mean, I had faith in myself, and I know that I had the ability to do my part, but they just weren't. They weren't. They were willing to give me the time of day. So that's how it worked out, man. And by the time I got my release, I was thankful. I was one of those guys that I wasn't devastated at a release from WWE. I was thankful that I had my release.
Yeah, a real head scratcher considering, years down the road, you look at how some of the other TNA originals ended up in that company. It just seemed that you had all the tools and everything, and they just had nothing for you. But that's wrestling, I guess. You would know that better than me.
Hey, man, they say timing's everything. Maybe if I waited a few years and gone with some of the other guys, because you're right, I did feel like they broke through that somehow. I don't know where the switch was, but for somebody with the talent of AJ Styles to go in there and to get debuted at a major pay-per-view, and for them to use the name AJ Styles, I mean, wow, you couldn't. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep somebody like that down. I think that's why we see him at the level he is today. But other guys, Samoa Joe, got in there, got to be the same guy with the same name, Bobby Roode, Eric Young. I mean, I loved watching all these guys go over and make something of themselves and be a success. I loved seeing that. Why that wasn't happening for me, I don't know. But it didn't. Again, it could just be timing. I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe I should have waited a few more years to go with those guys, and maybe it would have been a different opportunity.
Well, certainly validated in a lot of fans' eyes and commentators' minds how great TNA was during that time frame. But after this, you returned to TNA a couple of times. You had a role in Immortal. You teamed with Matt Hardy, and most recently, you were part of a reunited AMW with James last year. Do you see in your future any further role with that company, or could Great North Wrestling coax you and James into some kind of appearance down the road as a team again? What possibilities do you see there in that regard, if any?
I think that's a huge possibility. But as far as Impact goes, man, I would love nothing more than to keep working with those guys. that's obviously near and dear to my heart. Scott Demore, I still call him Coach. He's the one. He's the man in charge there. So I've always had a great relationship with Scott. I think that's why I've been included in things over the years. But yeah, great relationship with him, and I actually plan on seeing them. They're in. I'm in the Cincinnati area. They're in Columbus this weekend, and I'm just going to go and say hi to everybody. And I've already talked to Scott. And he's like, "Come on down." It's just to go see everybody and say hi. As far as in ring things, we had that. Him and I had that discussion last year when there was the AMW reunion. As far as doing something, but yeah, it's really hard to do anything like that. I mean, a lot of injuries and health issues, just things like that, where I wouldn't want to embarrass myself or the company. But what I have grown to know is that there is still a lot that I can give back to. Locally, I worked with an organization. It was the organization I started with, that I came up in the business with, and same organization as guys like Abyss, Carl Anderson. We got a new Jordan Clearwater, who is in the NWA right now. He came from there. He's doing great. Jillian Hall came from there. So I'm working heavily with these guys now, and not just being a coach, but I mean actually running a lot of the events with the owner Roger Ruffin, who Roger's been a tremendous friend and mentor to me for almost 30 years now. So I really working with them, and I've kind of gotten my I don't know, it just gave me a whole new love for something else I can do as far as helping the guys put their matches together and what to do and when to do it. And I guess that's pretty much when it's a TV product, that's what they call producing or being the agent. So I would completely love to be able to do that again for a company. I think I could be a really good asset to that. It's given me a whole new open mind to, even though I can't get in there and do it myself and get the reaction from the crowd, which is kind of like we talk about it being that high, that drug that you get. I've learned that if I can really get into helping some of the younger guys and help them with their matches and help them put it together and take those people on that roller coaster that I used to love, and then be able to see them do that out in the ring, and I see it with my own eyes, and I get that feeling, I get that high again. So it's really cool that I'm able to have that feeling again through them. I can kind of live it through them, but it's given me a little bit of the experience that hey, I've never done it on a TV level. But I would love to be able to work for a company to do something like that, and obviously Impact would be top of my list. I mean, I would love to be able to work with Scott again and be in some kind of capacity like that, and I think I would be really good at it. And this is nothing he hasn't heard. I mean, I've had those conversations with him, but yeah, I mean, I'm not shy to admit it. I mean, I would love to be at something like that, and since I can't do it myself, I'd love to be in a part like that. So if there's ever, hopefully, hope that might be in my future. You never know. But of course, there's always, I'd love to work for AEW or NWA or anybody like that. So yeah, I love the fact that because I went several years kind of under a rock for a while, and I wasn't doing a whole lot, and now I just feel like so involved in the business that I love it like that. Being a part of podcasts like yourself. I mean, I love what you guys do, and you keep the word of wrestling out there, and you have your guests, and even if it's a older guest, from years back, maybe it intrigues someone enough to go back and watch some matches. And conventions are a big deal now. I love doing the convention tours, and being able to meet the fans in there. Storm and I do a lot of those together. We have a great time doing that, and just a little sidebar. A lot of us love doing those just because we get to reconnect with a lot of our old friends. So that's really cool to do too. But yeah, that's a lot of what I'm doing now. But it's just a whole different feeling. I really love doing it. I can't even remember what the hell the damn question was to begin with, but Sorry I went off on that like that.
No, that's all good. Do you have anything specific to plug, and where can the fans find you on social media as we reach the end of our time here that you've been very generous about, Chris?
Yeah, so I mean, best way to do it is always on Twitter, and that's at AMW WildCat. My Instagram is at AMW WildCat Chris Harris. I'm still getting. I know I'm old, but I'm still getting used to the Instagram thing. Twitter was always my thing, but I know Instagram's the popular one now. So those are the best ways to get a hold of me. And yeah, I do. I still do appearances. I still do bookings. Just not, the wrestling part of it isn't involved very much, but AMW can still be out there. You know, we can still do different things. You know, Storm can still get in there and go, even though I think he's starting to wind down, but he can still go, man. And then I can always be there as a support and always lend another left hand in there if I ever need to. So, but yeah, those are great ways to get a hold of me. And yeah, just I mean, a lot of my stuff is local things now, other than like I said, the conventions or other bookings that I have going on. But yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, I'm involved with it's the Northern Wrestling Federation, the NWF, based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's run by Roger Ruffin. A lot of people might remember him from like late '80s, early '90s WWF referee. He was in there with the Hebners and Joey Morella and Mike Chioda, you know, guys like that. So yeah, he was a heavy hitter there back then. So he's got the experience, man, and I love working alongside that guy. And you know, of course, the names I mentioned before, you know, they pop in and out whenever they're in town, and we just got a really good thing going. We got a really good group of guys and gals that we're training, and they're coming up and they're getting their experience. And I hope someday, you know, they're able to make $1 million and be big stars on TV. So I love being able to watch that now and being a part of that.
Well, Chris, want to thank you again for all your time on the Great North Wrestling Podcast. I know the fans were looking forward to it, and they can check you out on your social medias. And please stay in touch, and we'll keep in touch to see what is transpiring with your career now.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for having me, Jack. It's been a pleasure. I love talking with you. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, any chance to be able to interact with the fans, you let me know all the feedback from this, how we did.
Thank you very much, sir. Fans, I'm going to direct you to ticketweb.ca for our next event, July the 15th in Smith Falls, Ontario, Great North Wrestling, Smith Falls Showdown, headlined by Carlito, Nunzio, and the Diabolical Blood Hunter. Tickets at ticketweb.ca. Don't you dare miss it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us